All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for clicking on this. Today I have a special guest, Regina. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Regina. I'm a 3D artist and a game developer from Austria. I have, together with my partner, a small indie studio called Microbird Games, and we released pretty much exactly a year ago a game called Dungeons of Hinterberg.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people know about your game and its unique visuals. I wanted to ask you, take us a little bit back. What happened in your life that you landed in doing what you're doing right now?
Yeah, well, I've been in game development for a good bit over 10 years already now. And I studied initially at FH Salzburg at the University of Applied Sciences, where they have a quite good 3D program and game development program in general.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, I had done some graphic design out of university and kind of wanted to do the whole 3D graphics thing. And I went into it not really thinking I would necessarily go into games. I cannot claim that I have always known this since I'm 5 or anything like that. But I kind of, started learning 3D and did an internship in the games industry and kind of fell in love with it like that. It was just the most fun I'd ever had on a job or working on a project. And so I pursued that as a 3D artist. And out of university, after my master's, I started working as an environment artist in Germany for a while, then came back to Vienna. I worked on mobile games in between, then on online multiplayer stuff. I worked on more realistic stuff and stylized stuff. Like I'm a typical, fitting to this, a typical generalist and don't really, had a specialist, had a special focus from the beginning. So I worked on all kinds of platform, all kinds of styles. And at the end of 2019, my partner and me, we worked in the same company that unfortunately went under. And we were kind of finding ourselves at home. It was also the time where the COVID lockdowns started.
Oh, wow.
And so it was kind of a
Yikes.
perfect, unperfect storm.
Yeah.
And kind of thought, okay, let's make the best out of it. When, if not now, do our own thing. And Philip, my partner, had already made an indie game on his own a few years before that, like a smaller mobile game, and had the dream of doing something of his own again. And then we both found ourselves kind of, unemployed or free, however you want to put it. And we thought, okay, let's go for it. And we came up with a concept and applied for a small grant from the Austrian government, which we got, and that helped us so that just the two of us for more or less a year could just work on a prototype from home. Luckily, it was a time when no one went out and spent any money anyway, so it was a bit
true.
it was okay for us. And then when we had a prototype, we during working on the prototype, basically we already put some GIFs and stuff online, and the art style luckily caught people's attention, and a bunch of publishers wrote to us, and we contacted some other publishers.
Wow.
And it was really, really nice. It was also, like I said, lockdown time, so you were not really required to go to any big conferences and pay for expensive flights.
Yeah.
But just have a video call with everyone, because that was the only option anyway. So we took us some months to kind of pitch the game around and then find funding for it. And we partnered with Microsoft in the end and Curve Games from the UK.
Yeah.
And then started slowly growing our team. And the game, like I said, released last year. So for Philip and me, it was basically a 5-year-long project.
Wow.
And the others on the team, a bit less, depending. Like the team grew at the biggest. It was like nine full-time and 1 part-time employee. And then the team got a bit smaller again towards the end. And it was a super, super fun, but also super challenging project for us.
So that's a insane journey, right? Like from internship, actually from FH Salzburg, which is it's a great school, to an internship, to environment art, and a couple of layoffs later, you started to work on a project. You never really thought this is gonna spark anything. You started making the GIFs, and it just happens to be it was COVID, and
Yep.
everybody was online, and you caught the attention of a lot of publishers, as you said, and wow, yeah, this just shows how like investing in oneself can lead to certain directions that no one could plan for. You can't plan for that, right?
No, it was definitely, like, I think from the beginning we tried to do certain things right to have good odds, like make the project appealing and all kinds of things, but also a lot of portions were just good luck and good timing, like always with these big projects, that you're kind of in the right place at the right time. And the whole lockdown, as horrible as a time it was for everyone in a way, kind of helped us as well in the modalities of how things were done. And like we all probably know, it was just a lot of money in the industry in general because everything was digital and everyone was investing. So it was a good time also to pitch a bigger project. And it got much bigger than Philip and me had conceptualized it in the beginning. Like we thought, we can do it in 1.5 years with a few people. And then it was like 4 years with, I mean, not a lot of people compared to other teams, but for an indie project, not so small. And it kind of grew and became something bigger than we thought.
Have you ever thought maybe it got way too big? Have it ever
maybe
gotten
not
that
way
far?
too big,
Yeah.
but it definitely got a bit too big in some ways. It's always, I think it's, in a way, it's a game that profits from doing a lot of things. But on the other hand, with a lot of project, once you're done, you think, that's really cool. But, if it would have been 20% smaller or shorter, it would not have been bad. It would maybe even have been snappier and a bit less work. So I definitely think that in some areas we could have saved production time, basically. But I mean, hindsight is 2020, like afterwards saying, two less levels would have been fine as well, as easy to say. But once we're in the middle of it and you're planning it all out, hard to nail good scope.
It's also hard to, after you promised, or it states in your contract with the publisher that this part of the game or this biome or this level is included, and then it's harder to get out of that after the promise is made. I guess, like, what would you say after you have done, after you've published the game and you shipped it and everything? You did not publish it, but you shipped it. What are the lessons learned?
There's always a lot of lessons learned. I think one of the, like we talked about, kind of how a project becomes bigger and how you fund a company and becomes bigger than you think. I think the biggest lesson for me, in a way, everyone always tells you, if you work on a bigger project, or if you have your own company, there's so much overhead and there's so much management and there's so much, I don't know, doing taxes and then boring things like that. And you're always like, I know it's a lot, I know. And then you do it yourself and you're like, wow, it's even worse than I would have thought. It's just a lot. And a lot of it is also fun, like managing people or giving feedback or teaching juniors or whatever is all things that I like doing. But it's just takes a lot of focus. Like it was important to Philip and me that no one on the team had to do crunch or overtime.
Wow.
Doesn't mean that there wasn't, like, I don't know, a day before a delivery where people stayed late, but we always made sure that no one crunches, that everyone gets their time back again and can then go early another day. But that was not, that was important to us for our employees. But of course, for Philip and me as founders, we kind of had to buffer the stuff that we hadn't calculated correctly.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of, we had a lot of days where you give feedback and you discuss stuff, and then you have a call with, I don't know, a tax advisor in between, and then you have to, and then it's like 4 p.m. and some people maybe start going home that started early, and you are kind of sitting down and starting your actual work on the game because everything was overhead. And then you work until, I don't know, till you have it done. So that was a big lesson for me, that you actually have to plan a bit differently with a team that size, and that you will be very distracted kind of at different things. Like it's not easy to speak to your tax advisor for half an hour and then immediately go to your PC and be super focused on a graphical thing. Like you have to kind of switch, and this is really was not easy at times.
how did you master that, or was it always difficult until the end, or did you notice that you were getting better? Because I guess it's not a normal thing like that you're trying to do, right? You said no crunching, but at the same time, because you're the founders, you're the one that ended up crunching in the end, if you liked it or not.
And I mean, in a way it's fair because it's our, like, we set it up, we thought we can do it in the time, and if not, like, then we try to buffer it. I do think you can learn from it also for future projects, but I don't know, for me it was also little things. Like, I'm someone, I kind of like to get little tasks off my plate, especially the ones that I don't like. If I know there's 10 unanswered emails, I'm kind of like, oh, I want to get it done so I can focus on something else. But realistically, like, I had to learn that you have to say, okay, I cannot answer all 10 emails every day, then I will not work on the game. So I have to, I don't know, answer the 3 most important or urgent ones, and then be okay with 7 others sitting in my inbox and not distracting me. So it's a lot of, you cannot magically get more time, you cannot really get faster in certain things, so you have to prioritize and also be okay with some things not being done immediately. And that's I mean, I still struggle with it, but you can kind of learn and be okay with it more than before.
I remember a time where you were close to shipping a year ago, I think, or a year and a half ago, and I remember you were still active, and you were like, whenever I texted you, you would reply immediately, and that changed, right? And then I was like, oh, but then you told me that you were on vacation for 3 weeks, and that's about the time where you replied to me for the invite on the podcast. I was like, I wonder what is happening there. And now you're describing it, I'm like, oh, so basically it's a skill, because I cannot master that skill, right? If someone texts me, I have to reply back. And it ends up by the end of the day that I didn't do any of the work that I wanted to do.
Yeah, then we're the same. Like, I also still struggle with it. I think you just have to tell yourself that you're not doing anyone a service if you like religiously do things in like the wrong order. But it's super. I also have a problem with it. And it's, I still had a team, and we still had funding. Like, if you're a solo dev or something who does that only in the evening, you do all of it on your own, it's probably even worse. Like, it's just game development is really hard. Yeah?
I wonder, since it's such a thing that affects your work, right, as a founder, I wonder why it's not taught as the first, like, one of the earliest things. I guess because it comes with success. No one teaches you to be. Everybody tries to teach you how to be successful, but then no one gives you the answers of how to handle it after. Like, and by successful, I mean getting a publisher, growing your team, right? And I guess there is not so much about that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess it's one of those things it's kind of a soft skill. It's harder to teach than to teach someone how to 3D model or how to code, which is equally complex, but it's kind of more tangible for a university or someone, or for a workshop to teach. Whereas, like we said, I mean, we both seem to be a type who cannot really deal well with unanswered emails or like stuff on the task. Maybe some other people don't struggle with that, but they struggle with, I don't know, doing the thing on the game that they have less fun with or whatever. So I think the challenges are also much like, learning and anatomy is a challenge of learning to draw or something. It's very clear, but the challenges of management, it's very, fuzzy kind of what is challenging to everyone. And it's harder to offer a solution, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have a clear-cut one.
It's also a thing where you're expected to know the answer of, like, common sense, which in my opinion is the most dangerous type of knowledge, is that the one that we think is obvious, but it's not obvious, because what happens is everybody just doesn't talk about it, and it doesn't get talked about, and at the end of the day, it's the key of success. Like, imagine if that is hidden because most people thought it was common sense. Like, it's common sense not to answer email and get the job done. Is it?
it's like you say, I think it's very different, like kind of knowing you don't have to answer every email. Yeah, sure, we all know the email police is not going to come to your house, but then really for yourself, analyzing, just being okay with being uncomfortable with a full inbox or something. It's just, like you say, it's common sense, sure, but really doing it and going with it and not being distracted by it is kind of, different aspect.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Hey, walk us through the team growing and how that, like, how did you grow, like, from the first employee to, like, the number that you have right now?
It's like right now we are 5 people, so we're a bit smaller again. But that was also something that I think you can't really be super prepared for. That's not a clear-cut skill, how to like find people and hire the right people. And what was specific about us from the beginning is that we kind of didn't want to have a full remote team. Like when we started slowly hiring people, that was 2021, and the lockdowns were already more or less over, so there was a possibility to work with people in an office again. And for us, like one aspect, the smaller one, was that we made a game that's kind of set in Austria, so it kind of makes sense to find people locally. They don't have to be like born here or lived here forever. Like we had people who moved to Austria at some point and were from somewhere completely different, and that helped a lot, I think, having that view. But that was kind of one aspect, that it's good if everyone kind of has some perception of the culture. But the more important thing for us was, like I said before, you are already so distracted with managing a team, and not just yourself, also your graphic artist will have to talk to the designer and the programmer and you, and get feedback and give feedback and so on. And if you're a big company and you have a lot of time or money, you can lose a bit of time with setting up calls and with screen sharing and doing things remotely. And for us, it was kind of like we didn't want to have the additional friction of, hey, can I discuss this thing with you real quick? Yeah, okay, in 10 minutes, a call. Yeah, okay, do you call me or I call you? Wait, my microphone is not working. And I know it's maybe ridiculous to some people, but for us, it's kind of this, like, if you're a small team who does a project they're passionate about, and you can just say, hey, can we physically sit together? Or can you look on my screen now and can we figure this out? It helps so much also in generating ideas and having that personal, like, connection and flow of creativity, that we didn't want to do that full remote. And I think we really benefited from that. And from the beginning we told we looked for people and we told them, hey, you will have to come into the office if you want to work on this project. And we also said from the beginning that, for example, Monday and Friday everyone can do home office if they want, and during the week, if you have a delivery coming to your house, you can also do it. It's not you have to be here every time, but you should be here enough that people can talk to you. And most of the people who we hired actually came into the office more or less all of the time. Like, some people like to take a Friday home office sometime, but there were some people who never wanted to do home office. And especially in the beginning, I think people were so starved of human contact after lockdown that they really were like, no, I'm coming in. This is much more fun. And I mean, we were transparent with wanting people to come in, and that's, I think, why we found people who also liked to really physically work with each other in the same room, and it worked really well for us. So that was impacted our hiring process, of course, because then the pool is not as big. You might see someone with a cool style online and think, oh, that would fit, but if they're somewhere else, they cannot work with you in the same place. So we had a smaller pool, I guess, to hire from, but it still worked really well. Like, we had nearly half the team, I guess, were like, I'm going to say juniors, as in it was their first project in the industry. Some still had worked in another industry for a long time, was not everyone right out of university. But it was a lot of people who only had worked on games during university or had not worked on games before, and it still worked really well for us. Like, if you find the right people and people who have a good understanding kind of what you're doing or the style you're doing, what can work.
Here's a question, because I'm very interested in the aspect of hiring juniors, especially how you did it, because I do believe it's not only good for the industry in the sense that they get to learn and have experience that's good for them. It's also an investment. So, or that's how I see it. I view it as such. How much of that is true? Like now that you have worked with juniors, what were the pros and the cons that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, kind of everyone, or like you insinuated, everyone always wants to hire seniors. And I think the big reason is not necessarily that their skill is better necessarily, but that they can do stuff on their own. Yeah. And you can just say, I don't know, you figure out the workflow. Like, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do. It has to run at this FPS or whatever, like figure it out.
Yeah.
And so there is a certain like overhead, I guess, in having people where you have to define the pipeline, that you have to give more feedback to. But I always feel that someone who is just like good at what they do, and that's not so much technically good, like if we talk about artists, for example, just someone who has a good feel for style, for what's aesthetic, what's pleasing, for composition, for stuff like that doesn't have to do with, I don't know, Blender or Maya or any specific software. If that's the case, you can teach them the rest comparatively quickly. Because like the worst thing is if someone is technically great, but they don't understand the style you're doing, then this is a problem. If someone is just technically doesn't have the experience, yeah, sure, you will have to invest some time, and you also don't want to just tell them to A or B. You want to explain why we are doing it this way. But yeah, I think it's worth it if the feeling and the understanding in general is there and the passion is there, then yeah.
So here's the thing, like you might start, so from experience, when I go on a project, I feel like there's a overhead of communication that needs to be done. You need to jumpstart the commitment, especially if it's on a tight deadline. I feel like a lot of communication needs to be done. But then afterwards, like 2 months in, 3 months in, 4 months in, you kind of notice that you're getting better. Also, like, does that happen? Did that happen ever where you notice, okay, the juniors that joined our team are now actually able to do it on their own and need less feedback from us? Was that ever the case?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also just a cool thing that you see how people become so much more self-sufficient, and how much they learn, or how much they also maybe figure out on their own, because you're like, I already Googled that, or I saw it somewhere else and I already know it, and then you don't have to and just getting certain things where you see, this person, was smart from the beginning, but they're struggling with X, and you tell them like 2 or 3 times. So that's also kind of something that I learned, that like some people, or I'm sure the same, if you struggle with something, being told once is probably just not enough. It has to be kind of repeated and pointed out again, because you don't see it on your own. But then after talking about it for a few times, you do realize that, this person now internalized it. And then now it's so much better. And when you think back about, when this person was really new or something, and how often we had to, I don't know, work over a certain thing or something. And now it's just there from the beginning, and you don't even think about it, and they don't even think about it. And that's super cool for both sides, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely have been my experience on the project that I worked on. And again, to your point on the on-site and the off-site, like remote, both have their pros and cons. And I could tell you that when we decided on this project, because it was like a remote project, everybody was working with each other remotely, fully remote, and we worked like basically on a AA game. That was a challenge on its own. So basically, so like two or 3 months before the shipping deadline, we decided to meet in the middle. So we had like people from the US. We had half of the team was from the US actually, and the other half was from Europe. And we decided to meet in Iceland because it's in the middle.
Oh, cool! So nice.
That's so cool, yeah. And then cool. we rented a conference room, and we finally worked on site together. I could tell you that with 3 days we've done weeks worth of work. It was amazing.
Wow, that's so nice.
I envy you.
Yeah, I like, it's I understand everyone who can't do it like that. It was kind of cool that we made it work like that. And of course it depends on how long a project is. And if you need someone super specialized, you're probably not going to find them in, I don't know, a small country you live in, like in Austria. And we also had outsourcers who helped us out with additional VFX or something who were not in the same country. So like you say, both has advantages and disadvantages. But I feel like this is completely my personal opinion and just my character. But most people who are in game development are so passionate about and so interesting in their own way and have such just such cool people. I just enjoy meeting these people on a regular basis and not just over a screen.
Yeah, it's very nice because we are like in game dev, we are also all kind of similar, like with our brains, right? Like we're creative, we're technical. You don't see a lot of us out there. So when you put when we put 5 of us in a room, 6 of us in a room, a lot of cool stuff happen. And that's how games are born. It's because you have those discussions, you have those meetings, and almost all the cool ideas come unplanned. Is that true?
Yeah, I would I'm not sure if it's almost all the cool idea, but like you describe, someone, I don't know, 2 artists might be in front of a screen talking about the art, and someone completely unrelated to art actually goes by and says, oh, wouldn't it be hilarious if he had, I don't know, horns like that or a hat like that? That looks like blah, this could be a good, I don't know, Easter egg or whatever. It's these are, of course, little things, but still valuable.
Yeah. Was there anything on the game that you were not required to do by contract, but you still did it and it was hard?
Well, we generally were actually super lucky working with Curve because they really gave all the creative control to us, and cool. They would, of course, we had milestone structure and we gave them a build, and they would, of course, feedback and also honestly tell us if they thought something is confusing or not working well. But even then, we could do our own solution and we would usually agree with them, and there was not really much, I don't know, we wrote that down 2 years ago and now we have to do it even though it's not right for the game anymore. If we said, hey, this is not right for the game anymore, we're going to do X instead, they said, yeah, makes sense. So it wasn't really a struggle of having to do anything that was in there. Of course, you do it on a lower level. If they say, we would really like, I don't know, to be, this one animation's a bit awkward, we would really like it to be polished. This happened to us really with the walk cycle, and we were kind of like, okay, this is, we agree, but it's the least of our worries. But, if it's so important to you, we can do that. And I'm sure they did, on the other hand, say, okay, if it's important to them, we don't have to fight about every little thing if you trust each other.
Wow. Okay, so your team is big, right? You're in the development, close to the shipping date, probably crunching too hard. How are you feeling at that time? Do you still feel like you're alive?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm thinking on what to answer first. No, I mean, it's always really kind of exciting. If you're happy with the product you're making and you're always afraid, that I don't know, you're imagining that it's good and others will think it's horrible, and you're never really free of these thoughts. But we generally were proud of what we were making, and we thought it was in a good place. You always see 1,000 things you would like to polish, but okay. So you're kind of excited and looking forward. And on the other hand, Philip, my partner, and me, we were really exhausted as well. It was really, we've worked on it a long time. We worked 2 long hours towards the end. And then it's all the uncertainty you still have. How's it going to go? How is it going to be received? It's just, you have so much adrenaline. Every week something happens that's, oh my God, that's great. Oh my God, this is horrible. And oh my God, this is going to work out. Oh my God, there's not enough time for that. And then you do a mock review or something and you get all this feedback and it's great, but it also says that these 3 things are horrible and now you have to fit them in. And it's I mean, I guess it's just an emotional roller coaster. So it was a cool experience, but it's not... if I think back about this time right before release and how exhausted I was, I would not want to be that exhausted now. So it's good and bad.
Maybe for the next project. Here's the thing: people are listening to this. They're thinking, okay, game dev, probably Regina is having hands-on code since she was young. Can you walk us through your journey with code?
Well, I come much more from the artist side, so I'm not a programmer per se. I think I had like 2 hours of Python scripting at university, which I read nothing of, and then some HTML, which I'm not sure if you can. Some people would not call code, I guess. So yeah, for me, it came much more from the 3D art side, but this is technical enough in itself, and I actually then like years into my career just on my own time, I think when I was between projects at some point, started to learn some Python not in earnest, but for an artist in a kind of more focused way, and yeah, it helped me a lot, I think, and understand what's going on in a games code, even if I cannot write on this level, and also make my own tools and just automate like little simple things. So yeah, I think for an artist, I'm technically minded on average. Like I'm not a tech artist, but I have done some VFX. I do talk with the programmers about code. I kind of understand why something is a problem or what's the challenge.
Yeah. So the reason I asked is because people who are watching this podcast or listening to it, 60% are women.
That's really cool.
For some cool reason, and I would like to make that a bit more. And I asked you because there might be maybe 2 women listening right now thinking, I'll never be her, I'll never be Regina, I don't even know how to code, right? And I want to highlight how you could still make Dungeons of Hinterberg and still not be the best coder in the world, and you could still be the founder of that and hire programmers. It is doable. Yeah, because like a lot of people, when you ask them why are you not into game dev, the first thing is I'm not good with math, I'm not a good programmer, I guess. Do you have a word for those people?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've heard the same as you, and I think I get where it comes from, because it's a software and you associate it with programming first and foremost. But our team had, to count now that I don't say something wrong, but yeah, about half of the people are coders, and the other half are like artists, and also you have disciplines like production or QA where a bit of understanding of code is always good, the same way as a bit of understanding of art is always good for a programmer. It goes either way, but there are absolutely disciplines where you don't have to code. And if I say I'm kind of technically minded and I understand what a programmer tells me, it's because I learned on the job, not because I was born loving math in elementary school or anything. Yeah.
Okay, next question. 3 games that inspired Dungeons of Hinterberg.
One of the more obvious references that we were also compared to sometimes, which is a bit scary, was Zelda, Breath of the Wild, especially with 3D Zelda. And of course, you're like, oh, that's so cool. And immediately you're scared of, oh my God,
no, it's nothing like it.
It's not as yeah, exactly. It doesn't have like physically based skills or anything. So that's cool, but also, a comparison. Like we were really paranoid during development that no one call it open world. Also, like no one, I don't know, at Xbox or at Curve, like never say like open world or anything to it. Don't do it. Because you don't want to mislead people with comparisons like that. But it was kind of a big inspiration to us, more in terms of like puzzles and little dungeons. Like the shrines in Breath of the Wild are smaller than they used to be in old Zeldas, and that's in Dungeons of Hinterberg, also more bite-sized. And it's a series that we loved, so it's one of the inspirations. Also the old Zeldas, and then another big one is the Persona series, like especially Persona 5.
That's a shock to me. Okay.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's a shock.
So obvious to me, but Philip and me, like we played it at the very beginning of lockdown when we were kind of starting to think about doing our own thing. It was this time where, even as an adult, you could sit on the sofa the whole day and play because, we were annoyed and in lockdown. But we just played this and thought, it's like we liked the whole social link stuff, and we liked that it kind of transports you to, okay, you're a teenager in Tokyo now. That's the feel of the game, and we kind of wanted to do this, creating a place that's kind of magical and fantastic, but also kind of realistic. And you're in Hinterberg, just in vacation in Hinterberg, and you can get to know this place and the people there and forge friendships and all this. Making friends and kind of leveling up your friendships will give you rewards that you can use for the gameplay. All of this was inspired by Persona.
Yeah.
So yeah. And what else?
I'm waiting for the third game. I think I know it, but if I don't know it, then I did not understand the game.
Say it. I want to know.
Okay, since it's hack and slash, 2 games in mind: Devil May Cry and God of War.
Yeah, God of War was one of those that I would have made.
Cool.
Devil May Cry, we also really liked. I think I kind of would feel bad comparing it to Devil May Cry because this game is so dynamic and snappy and fast and complex in combat, and Hinterberg is much more paced and kind of slower. But that's where God of War kind of was a good reference for us. It's also one of those genres, where you don't want to be publicly compared too much because you just cannot do the AAA level of like polish or versatility. But this, the hack and slash aspect, you're definitely.
I guess Zelda is the scare one because.
I think we were like style-wise not even so much like
cell shading. I mean, that's it.
Cell shading, yeah, absolutely. But I'm not really scared of our cell shading being compared to Zelda rendering. I think we did a good job there, and it looks similar but not the same. I was we were always scared about being compared to a huge AAA or open title, and then people thinking, it's just like that, and then being disappointed that obviously you cannot deliver that kind of scope.
Now, honestly, whenever I started the game and started playing, I was like, God of War, definitely, and I like it. And then it's like a mini, I don't know, like the way it felt to me, a mini God of War, a cuter version of God of War.
That's a really cool.
Yeah. It's also like there's things where you can't go through the path until you like unlock a certain skill, which reminded me a lot of God of War. Was that also a game you played in the pandemic?
I'm not sure when exactly we played it, if it was, but we definitely played God of War before and after. Like cool. There's the details, like we have this overworld, it's kind of a swamp and you can go on the boat. And I remember during development, we went back to God of War where you have this level where you can pick up the cane and just looked at how they do cool. it. Like, to check this.
What's next for you?
Yeah, we had, like you hinted before, we had a vacation now. Finally, like after Hinterberg released last summer, we basically did updates and extra content for more or less nearly a year, and bug fixes, and just still took care of maintaining the game. And then we went on a vacation, basically just now a bit. Also, the team that's still with us had they are still on vacation until next week, basically. And meanwhile, Philip and me start working lightly, I'm going to say, on next prototype. And when the team returns, we'll do that. But I cannot say any details yet.
Yeah. I guess the question is, what type of games are you playing now?
And now I have to pick games where I don't spoil.
I shouldn't have been as obvious. So are you playing games actually, like, or did you need like a break after you were done from games?
Both, actually. Like we do play games, and even like most adults, like most people in game development, we don't have as much time as we would like to have to play games. But we do also together, sometimes on the sofa. And I don't feel that I need a break from games, but I do. I am someone who still needs to do, I don't know, some analog stuff, some going outside, some crafts or whatever as well in my spare time, to not be completely focused on digital things. But we played Metaphor, for example, a big one. I talked about Persona before. We always, we have a Game Pass subscription. And this is not meant as advertisement now, but we just play a lot of Game Pass because, you can quickly and easily check out games. So we do a lot of,
it's convenient,
checking out stuff on there.
And so Metaphor was definitely a game you enjoyed lately, right? That's basically similar to Persona, or even the same developer from Persona, correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same developer. It's yeah. I think Philip played more and finished it on his own. It was. I'm more of a Persona fan, I still have to say, but yeah, it's a weird and cool game to check out, definitely.
It's one of the only games, in my opinion, that does this with like friendships so well. It's very rewarding to build those friendships, and it's also a bit scary to ruin a friendship. And I noticed that people with like really good leadership skills enjoy those games.
Yeah, they could be. I never really thought about it. I think it's something. I also Philip and me kind of fell in love with it with Persona 5 and so on. But I think it's generally something that resonates with people, and that's getting a bit more. Like when we made and pitched Hinterberg, we were also like, okay, adapting the social link and like the more hack and slash gameplay instead of the turn-based gameplay, and putting that together. And I think it's something that kind of started in Japan, and that's influencing more and more games and indie games and so on. And yeah, I like it. I think it's a cool mechanic for lots of games.
Where do you see the industry going from now
on? This is a super interesting and difficult question. Can you specify, or should I just go with whatever?
In terms of indie games, if I'm more specific, like how do you think things would shift? Would we see more teams that are gathering on a freelance basis, working on a project, and then after the commitment is done, everybody goes on their own way, kind of like Hollywood? Is it gonna continue into employmentship? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a super interesting topic. I think you're right with the gathering for a project and then splitting again, because sadly the golden times that we had during lockdown, where everyone was investing in games, is over and has been for a while, and it even had the kind of negative effect that 3 years later, or 2, 3, 4 years later, so many projects launched at the same time, and this is kind of still happening. So we have just a big oversaturation of the market in general, and there's so many AAA games, but also so many indie games, which is great, of course, but in a way, like, every indie developer I know kind of supports all other indie developers, and everyone is friends, and at the same time we are all each other's competition in a way, because like I just said, no one has 100 hours of time to play video games, and no one has the money to buy 50 video games a month, so we're all kind of competing with each other, which is a bit tough. And I think, like you say, gathering for a project and then letting freelancers go again, of course, is easier for the company or for whoever like pitched and financed the game, which is kind of a pity, because like we said before, you kind of, if you hire someone you really like, you would like to keep them. If you really like working with someone, you would like to continue that, but it's just not stable right now. And I think what's happening, and that's not just me saying that, but I think what everyone's seeing is that a lot of the big studios and companies let people go as well during the last 2 years. And that's a lot of those people, of course, have amazing skills and ideas they've probably had for a long time. So a lot of people go into indie, and a lot of people do smaller projects. And we talked before about the scope of Hinterberg, and Hinterberg was a risky project just because it was long, and the team was, for an indie, somewhat big, and it was expensive due to that. And then you have to sell a lot of units to make it work, basically. So smaller is maybe a bit easier in that regard. But then if everyone thinks that, and now you don't have 100 games releasing each month, but you have 300 small ones releasing, it's gonna be interesting. There's certainly lots of cool stuff going on, but it's not the easiest time for gaming, for game development, I think, right now.
I do agree. Here's the thing. I feel like we're right now in the age of open source. We're in the age of free tools, and sometimes even free or affordable education out there. Things are getting more reachable. Like, you could probably learn how to make a game on your own PC and connect it to the internet. And the tools that you might be required 10 years ago, learning Maya, learning whatever things that cost you thousands and thousands of euros if you were a freelancer, it was probably not affordable to be a freelancer back in the day. Now with the age of AI, where you could basically be your own manager, you could be your own marketing company in a way to present your work. You can making a podcast honestly right now is just that much easier. The automation that I could do on like the shorts that I upload, all of those things, I feel like it's becoming easier to become an entity than just a person that is hired and employed. And it's becoming easier to be a generalist in a way, meaning you're learning skills that you need on the job, and then after that you both agree, you as a freelancer, you agree that, okay, I'm gonna start, and just like I'm starting, I'm gonna finish, and by finish I mean it's gonna end. And employment adds that pressure not just on you but on the employer as well, to find ways to keep themselves sustainable, which can be unfair on the employer, honestly. And I could see how much pressure that would create, and unnecessary. It's very unnecessary in my opinion. Like, if you want to support people after they made a project, the project that I worked on, for example, one of the cool things is that we all agreed on revenue share to keep supporting us after the project, which is something that is way more flexible than you being hired and you either sign on the contract or you don't sign on the contract. With being a freelancer, you really can negotiate things. And I guess that my brain always goes towards that. And the other cool thing about freelancing is you're really not saying goodbye to those people. If there's a project down the road, you worked with 9 people, maybe 8 out of the 9 or 1 out of the 9 will have another project next year, 2 years after. You work together, you all know that you work well together, kind of like Hollywood. This is how they do it with actors and producers. Someone knows someone, and then you get the role. And I feel like this is where we're heading slowly. Indie right now is getting that golden opportunity, but like you said, there's a lot of indie right now.
Which is also a good and a bad thing at the same time. And like I agree with you. It's still a small industry, as in we're gonna cross paths with a lot of people again. And we also told everyone who we are not working, who we couldn't keep and we're not working again with. We are always there if you need an introduction with anyone. If you wanna, I don't know, apply for funding, we're gonna tell you how it worked. I want everyone to succeed, and not just because I want it for them, but cool, maybe I hired you 5 years ago and then 2 years later you pitch your own project and you have the funding, and maybe you will hire me, or not hire, but use me as a freelancer. It's cool. It's cool either way. In
a way or another, you also basically had to let people go after the project is done. And I wanted to ask you, and of course, if you're free, if like you're open to share with us, how difficult was that? And how do you think it could have been easier for you?
Well, I mean, like you say, you can make it easier for yourself as an employer or as someone who like pitches and organizes the project if you just hire freelancers, which is in Austria complicated. For annoying insurance reasons, I cannot really employ someone full-time who's a freelancer because they have to prove they have other customers and all kinds of stuff that just doesn't fit the industry and doesn't help either side, but it is like it is. Or you can employ them as employees. And like I, for myself, I went through a bunch of losing my job in just the past 10 years of working in game development. And you're shocked the first time, and then you're a bit bummed out the second time, and then with the third time, you're kind of like, and I kind of told myself already along the way exactly what you said now. Like, I told myself after a few years, okay, I'm a freelancer. No matter if I have an employee contract or a timed contract or a freelance contract, someone hires me for a project and he says, we want to keep you forever. That's fine. And I ask them, well, how long does the project take? And if they say 2 years, then I know I have a job for 2 years.
Exactly.
Probably.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's
perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So and for us, it was still hard letting people go, unfortunately. Like especially like we also try to just share the success, because Hinterberg was not like, I don't know, a failure or anything. It's just not a market where we can do another project of that size. So yeah, we gave people a bonus, for example. We tried to tell everyone as early as possible that at this point, some people have to leave. And it was also, I think, like a lot of them thought, just like I said, that, it's not the most stable industry. And they were like, yeah, that's okay. Thanks for telling us early. Thanks for being there for us. And yeah, of course, we would still try to help out everyone with, I don't know, making an introduction or whatever we can do. And yeah.
I guess,
like you said, next time maybe I will work with a project that someone else has pitched and come up, and that's great.
It never really ends, and I think I would prefer that someone tells me really like, 2 years, or what, like half a year from now we can't do anything. It is what it is, and just like being honest and going through the like in between the lines, and you really never get the true answer, and at the end you just get told it never worked out with you, or something like very vague, so that not everybody knows that the studio is having financial issues, all this politics and stuff like that. I have problem with that, definitely. Here's the thing. We have let's say 9 minutes left, 8.5. Is there something you would like to say, promote, advice maybe?
Good question. I don't have anything to promote right now, which is actually also nice, because during Hinterberg we pitched the project so much. It's kind of cool that it's just out now. I can still promote it. I think it's still in the sale. At least it's in sale on Steam quite regularly. It's also on PlayStation and Xbox, and in Game Pass if you have that. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any other advice than what I already said. I think it's still a cool industry. Like I always try to say that in the end, because there's, especially for artists, it's like, starving artists, and it's so hard to be an artist, and you're never gonna be rich. Yeah, probably not, but it's still a job where you can make a living, and as a generalist who can do some broader skill set, be it within art or outside, it's easier, and it's still a career I really enjoy, even though we all speak about like how hard and how unstable it is, and yeah, it's still really cool at the same time.
All right, last question. What would you tell either the 14-year-old you or the 14-year-old who's watching right now? Probably a girl, let's imagine. What would you tell her?
Especially for girls, but for everyone, there's nothing at 14 that you can't do, or that you're not suited at, or that's not your major hobby, or you don't like the games others like, or you can't draw yet, or whatever. That doesn't matter. If you're that age, you can learn it all. I wasn't a drawing wizard at 14. Like I said, I found out I want to work in games when I was in my early 20s, not when I was 14 or 4. That's really fine.
Yeah. All right.
You can still go that direction.
All right, that's great. It's been really cool having you on. I'll just pivot a little bit to the viewer. Thank you for watching this. Share it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Share it with your friends if you enjoyed it. The more support, the better, of course. Leave a like and subscribe. And hey, see y'all next time, which will be very soon. All right, gonna say bye to the viewers. Bye. Have a good day, guys. All right.